Welcome to Finding Hope During the Holidays. I'm Jason Archuleta. I'm the worship pastor here at Aldersgate. This is my friend Toby McMillan, and she's going to join us today as we talk about dealing with singleness during this holiday season. So Toby, will you just go ahead and share with us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey through life?
Sure. So as he said, I'm Toby McMillan. I am 48 years old and have never been married, have no kids. So have been on this journey of singleness for a long time. I have been in pretty significant relationships that lasted for a few years and looked like they were heading towards marriage and then didn't ultimately. And so have been in serious relationships but have not ever been married.
Got you. So when we talk about surviving the holidays or kind of working through the holidays in many different aspects through this video series, and we talk about singleness specifically, how as a single adult what challenges do you face during the holidays that those of us who are married, especially with kids, may not see or understand?
Sure. And I do want to mention, obviously I'm single because I have not ever been married, but other people are single because they may be widowed or they may be divorced or they may also be a single parent, so they're still facing that with children. So lots of reasons for that. And I think the challenge really is the holidays, and you look at what you see on TV, you look at, all the different things that are coming at us in terms of marketing and advertisement really center around a nuclear family. Yeah. And so because certainly as a single person, I'm aware of my singleness for the rest of the year as well, but it's kind of especially challenging during the holidays because everything is really kind of geared toward families. And obviously there's big things like, where am I going to spend Christmas? And so, that's obvious for someone with kids, like we're going to do this here, or we're going to go to the grandparents, or we're going to do whatever. And so sometimes there's a challenge with, where I'm going to go. And then even when you get there, people expect when you're single, you're always going to travel. They're not going to come to you. So that's a challenge. And then when you do travel, when you're married and you have kids, it's like, okay, you guys are going to stay here in the bedrooms. Oh, Toby, you're single. You can stay out on the couch. And so there's kind of you feel like the other in a lot of, those kinds of things. And then obviously like traditions and things like that, which are challenging as a single person. And especially I think even for people who are, have gone through loss and they're going through those traditions. But even really like things that you don't think about, like Christmas cards. People exchange Christmas cards. Well, as a single person, maybe people would love this smiling face on their refrigerator, but in general, I'm not sending out Christmas cards. And so sometimes you're not included in things like that. Or holiday parties, it's going to be a bunch of couples. And so I'm not invited or people aren't really sure. And then for a lot of people, they don't know really how to even address it. So I think a lot of times you end up kind of getting excluded, or even decorating. Like, am I going to put up one stocking? Am I going to put, gifts for myself under the tree? Or, there's just a lot of different things that I think maybe don't come to mind. It's funny, even some of those I don't necessarily think about all the time. A friend of mine shared a post on social media today about, things you can do or say for your single friends. And I was like, some of those things like Christmas cards and decorations and things that sometimes do kind of sting that you might not think of.
So you're talking about some of these challenges that you're facing or that you have faced during the holidays. How do you deal with some of those? Like maybe how do you deal with being relegated to the couch or whatever like that? Because that makes sense to me. We have a big family, so we go somewhere. Most of the time we get a big bedroom, but it's always typically with a kid or two. How do you handle that?
Yeah. And let me say this. There are certainly things that I do to kind of make this better, but I think there have been seasons in my life where it just hurts and it's hard, and I need to acknowledge that for me and for also other people who are in this situation. Sometimes it's just hard and you let it be hard, and sometimes you bring it to someone's attention. But I think for me, the most important thing is, where is my focus? So I can spend my entire holiday, if I'm staying on the couch, and I can be bitter for 4 days that I'm sleeping on the couch, or I can be grateful for the family that I do have, and we're filming this in November. A lot of people do a gratitude challenge during November, but you look biblically, we're called to give thanks in all circumstances, which doesn't mean I have to give thanks for everything. I don't have to give thanks that I'm on the couch, but I can give thanks that I get to spend this time with family. And there have even been times when I didn't spend it with family, but I had friends who said to me, hey, why don't you come over and join us for Christmas? Or why don't you come with us for a Christmas service, or, those types of things. And so I can be grateful for that. And so I think the holidays, a lot of times, especially for single folks, and really I think for all of us, it's real easy to look at what we don't have. And I can spend a lot of mental and emotional energy on what I don't have, or I can recognize what I do have. And I think with Christmas, a lot of times we start looking at gifts, and so I can focus on the gifts I'm not getting, or that I don't have a spouse or a significant other to get me stuff, or I can focus on what I can give. And really being intentional, and as a single person, I might not have the resources, but I could bake for someone, or I could write encouraging words, or I have opportunities to serve because I have more time. And so there's things that I can do where I put my focus on others. And obviously in terms of Christmas, I can put my focus on Jesus. I can have some alone time to kind of really dig into that. And even though the world is saying Christmas is about all these other things, I can recognize the gift that Jesus is and kind of focus there. So I think a lot of it is a matter of focus and just looking at what are the things that I have, what can I be thankful for, and how can I give, instead of what am I going to get or not get because I'm single.
So what are things that we can do, those of us who are married and have that nuclear family, that most of the market, like you said, most of the marketing and even like we talk about sermon series at the church, we do marriage sermon series fairly often, but I don't know that I've ever heard a singleness sermon series, maybe a one-off message in that series. Like what can we do to help include and to love you better in seasons like this?
Yeah, and I think, and these opportunities are always there, but again, at the holidays, they're magnified. So if your family's going to a Christmas service, who might be wanting to come and not having anyone to go with or not having anyone to sit with, so including them there. Or Christmas cards. Don't be afraid to send a Christmas card to your single friend who you're not going to get one back from. Or even gifts, and it might be the single mom who is not going to get a gift, and maybe rounding up her kiddos and helping them do something for their mom. Or, I just think there's a lot of ways to include and even, bring up another seat at a Christmas meal. And maybe people don't take you up on it, but I can tell you, even on the times when I haven't had a need necessarily to do that, the fact that somebody thought of me and thought, oh, Toby might need an invitation for Thanksgiving, or Toby might need an invitation for Christmas, has kind of made all the difference for me, And I will say this also, as the single person, I have a responsibility to communicate that. Not that I'm broadcasting on social media, hey, I'm lonely during the holidays, be my friends, but who are my friends, and reaching out to them. And if they're not aware that this might be a challenge, then helping them to know, hey, Jason, if you could do this for me, that would be really helpful. Or letting someone know, hey, I don't have anywhere to go for Christmas. Because I think most people would include, it's just not on their radar. So helping them with that, which kind of reminds me, when I think about singleness and when I think about the ways that God has provided for me, because obviously I've been single for a long time and through a lot of seasons, and God has brought so many amazing people into my life, and God has brought His own presence at various times. And so there's times when I want to be frustrated and think, why don't I have these consistent relationships? Why isn't it always the same thing? And it kind of reminds me of the Israelites wandering around in the desert. They wandered around for 40 years and they hated it, understandably. This wasn't what they wanted. But in that season, God was teaching them to rely on Him, and He provided manna. Basically their food fell from the air, which is absolutely amazing, right? It's this crazy miracle. And they got what they needed for every meal, but they couldn't store it up. So for every meal, they had to look to the sky and expect for God to provide. And they got this amazing thing. And instead of being like, thank you, God, for giving us manna for every meal, they said, man, we wish we were back home in front of the fire and we were eating our stew. And I think as a single person, it's real easy to go, man, I wish I had this same consistent relationship every day and I could come home to this thing and whatever. And I think God has said to me in my journey, like, hey, I'm going to provide for you when you need it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be there, and you don't get to store it up maybe like other people, but just like that manna came supernaturally, I think God has provided for me in my singleness with relationships, with His presence, with gifts, with care. And so even though it doesn't look like maybe what I would like for it to look like, there's no doubt that He has provided for me in pretty amazing ways. Yeah. And so I think my key for finding hope in the holidays is just recognizing that God has continued to provide, and He will.
Yeah.
And even if I don't know where that's coming from or what it's going to look like, the manna will come.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good word. I think that's a really good word for all of us in this season, especially when so many of us are dealing with, Toby mentioned loss of friends or families that we've lost over the last year or so, or sometimes it's the first season without someone. We all have those things we have to look to the Lord for, rather than trying to look even to a spouse or not having a spouse or thinking that's where we're going to get something. Really, the place we need to be looking at all times is to Jesus. And so that's our hope in the holidays for all of you, for ourselves included, that all of our focus will be on Jesus during this holiday season for Him to provide. So we want to say thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time.